Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and betting preview for this week's RBC Canadian Open. Gonna get you guys ready for all of your exposure. But first off, a look at my key stats and modeling and what I'm using to identify my top plays. And then afterwards, gonna go through some of my exposure, both from the DFS and the betting side of things, to give you guys an idea of how I'm approaching this slate. That'll include my DFS core plays, a couple value plays as well, that I'm using to save some salary towards the bottom, as well as a few outright bets and some placements that I've already gone to myself. So by the end, you'll have a pretty good taste of how to approach your research process and a few ideas of maybe a few plays that you might want to add to the mix as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start it off. But first off, a look at our modeling. This is going to be the first time that we're seeing TPC Toronto, so to get a little bit more familiar with the track, you guys might want to check out the course breakdown I already put up on the channel, but we're going to give you guys the Spark Notes version here. So for the full version, check out the link in the description of the video, but here we got ourselves a ball striking fest. We've got 4-inch rough across the golf course, some tighter fairways which have been narrowed for this event, and a golf course where if you're missing in 4 or 5-inch rough, you're going to be penalized a half a stroke almost every time. So the players that can keep themselves out of it around the green, or of course off the tee, are able to hit the fairways, are going to gain a bunch of strokes to the field, and frankly are the players that I expect to see towards the top. Now that's not atypical of a tour event. Ball striking tee to green play is normally the most important aspect, but when you get 4-inch rough and you're actually penalized for missing, that's when it's even more so the case. So that's what you're going to see me focusing on in a lot of my modeling. In terms of approach play, it is going to skew a little bit longer than most tour courses just because it is a par 70 and almost 7,400 yards. So for 150 yards and out is where you're going to see a little bit of extra emphasis. Off the tee, it's a relatively balanced golf course. I do think you would have missed that 4-inch rough, but because there's no dog legs, there's really not many trees around this golf course either. You can bomb and gouge it if you want to. That 4-inch rough is going to make things a little bit more difficult, but I think your strong players are going to be able to get through it. Your shots gained putting, I'm looking at bent POA. That is, of course, the surface for this week. Also some recent form, but outside of that, I mean, par 4 scoring because it's a par 70 around the green is utilized a lot less here than it will at most tour courses. We don't want to overcomplicate things. It's a new track. We want to focus on form, the agronomy where we can, and try not to make a whole lot of guesses about how it's going to play. So even these comp courses aren't really being utilized as much as usual, as we aren't completely certain on what kind of skill set is going to play well here. So I'm looking at Philly Cricket Club. That was for the Truist a few weeks ago. Muirfield Village, of course, the track that we just played at. And then last year's RBC Canadian Open, I do think is a little bit of a different test compared to what we're going to have here. A lot more dog legs, a lot more trees around that golf course, but the same kind of agronomy in that same 4-inch rough, which was really testing players at that event. So these are the kind of things that I'm looking for in players this week. But the main PSA that I'll give you guys on a week with the new golf course is don't think that you've galaxy brained it and that you know exactly what's going to happen. Like, I break down golf courses every week. I do this for a living. I break down props and all that as well. I tend to have a pretty decent idea what to expect, and even I know it could go multiple different ways this week. So I'm not going to act like I have the crystal ball ahead of time and I know for certain what's going to play well. Form, maybe some bent POA stats. We know that's the type of greens that we have this week. That should be a majority of what you're focusing on. So now that we have an idea of this golf course and how it is likely to play, or at least kind of an idea or a guess of how it's going to play, let's translate that into some of our top pieces of exposure, both from the fantasy and the betting side. Core play number 1 on this week is going to be Shane Lowry, who is $9,900 on Draftkings, a whole $2,000 cheaper than Rory, which is some nice salary savings if you don't want to take the big spend up top, but also somebody I bet at 22 to 1. And it's mostly because of the form he showed at the Memorial. He was one of the best players in the field through rounds 1 through 3. Of course, had a Sunday collapse, which makes the week look a whole lot worse. But through those 3 rounds, he had gained nearly 9 strokes on approach, which, believe it or not, was even better than Scotty Scheffler through those 3 rounds. And he was leading the event after 54 holes. The Sunday collapse can't be completely ignored. It is kind of tough to want to bet him to win when he shows us that kind of a Sunday collapse. However, this is a perfect golf course for him. Just like Memorial was a really good setup because you can hit fairways and gain strokes to the field. I think it's going to be the same type of way this time around. And also that approach form is unmatched of the players in this field. And it's not even just the last event that went his way. If we take a look at the last 12 measured rounds heading in, Shane Lowry is gaining 1.51 1 shots gained approach per round, which is by far the best of the players at the top. He's also a player that fits this style of golf really well because hitting fairways, hitting greens is going to lead to a bunch of shots gained. And on the bent POA surface, last week, his main issue through the 3 rounds, why he wasn't winning the event, was the putter. He was atrocious on the greens, could not buy a putt for his life on those bent grass surfaces. Now that it's a bent POA, which for his career, he gains about a quarter of a stroke per round on, that's about a half a stroke better per round than his 24 round baseline. Maybe he's due for some positive regression to the mean, which if he's even a neutral putter this week, I like his chances to top 15, top 20. But if we can find a hot putter, gain a few strokes on the greens, I think he's got a chance to win. And I hope he can keep it together on Sunday. Those collapses are a tough scene. It's not even just been the last week. It's happened a handful of times over the last few years, but he's continuously getting himself into contention, playing some of the most consistent golf that we have on the PGA Tour. And at $9,900, he doesn't necessarily have to win to get there in DFS. You could still play a Rory, maybe use Shane Lowry as your second man in. And though I don't have Rory on here as a core play, he's going to be a big piece of my exposure this week. I'm still going to have him in plenty of lineups. It's just that guys like Shane Lowry, Sam Burns that we're going to go through here in a second are far more interesting plays and guys that you can leverage more against the field. So I like myself some Shane Lowry, really fits this style of golf quite well. And though we don't have an exact idea on the course fit, if ball striking is going to be the name of the game, well, Shane Lowry, we have no concerns with that whatsoever. Next up, we got Sam Burns, who this is a high upside outright and a high upside core play. He finally found the irons. And the thing with Sam Burns is that he's been by far the best putter on tour this year. He's been solid around the green. He's driving the ball well. And the only reason he hasn't found success is that he can't hit a second shot for his life. But last week at a signature field event, he went out there, he gained 0.6 strokes on approach per round. And it's why he had one of his best starts of the entire year. And if you take a look at the last 12 measured rounds, you'll see him losing in that category, but just making everything on the greens. And this is a golf course that is wide open off the tee. You can do it with your power or you can do it with your accuracy. I think that plays directly into his skill set. He's not the kind of guy like Lowry that I'm expecting to hit 80% of the fairways, but Sam Burns, there's not really any water for him to get into trouble. You don't have those wooded areas where he can make double, triple bogeys like he does at times on tour. If he can find that iron momentum and keep it going from event to event, this is a perfect setup for Burns because you can see for his career, he gains about 0.6 strokes per round on the bent POA surface. That is lower than his 24 round baseline because, as previously mentioned, he is quite literally the best putter that we have in all the PGA Tour this year. Over that 24 round sample size, also gaining off the tee, a neutral with the around the green play. The big quote unquote issue, and I'll put that in quotes because he still had an excellent year, has been that approach play. But if he's trending in the right direction there, and God forbid if he gains strokes to the field again in the 3 to 4 shots gained category, he could win in a weaker field event like this. So give me some Sam Burns. He is a high risk play, I would say, though, because he's got a super low floor. But Sam Burns is one of the few players in this field that could win this by 5 strokes. He's an extremely streaky player, and when he plays his best golf, he oftentimes is capable of gaining 15 to 20 strokes to the field, which is the kind of performance that you're going to have to put up if you're going to beat a Rory McIlroy. I mean, Rory's probably gaining at least 8 to 10 strokes to the field this week. I'd expect him to be in the top 5, top 3 at the very worst. For outrights, especially if I want to go a little bit further down the board with a player like a Lowry or a Burns, I want somebody that when they put it all together and they have themselves a week, can actually gain something like 18 to this 20 strokes because it may take that many to beat somebody like Rory. A smaller, weaker field event like this, oftentimes it's closer to 14, 15 strokes that's take home that event. Burns, Lowry have the kind of upside to get to that performance. So I'll be playing both in DFS. I do think Lowry's going to get some steam in fantasy contests. Sam Burns, I'm not sure he's going to be as steamed as somebody like a Lowry just because you have Harry Hall around him, Keith Mitchell, Luke Clanton, that should take some attention away. Heck, even a Sanjay Taylor Pendrith, I think are going to get played themselves as well. While Shane Lowry's a little bit further towards the top, those top tier guys are always getting some ownership, and he's got some of the best form of anyone in the field. In fact, I feel like people would prefer to play Lowry over a McIntyre, prefer to play a Lowry over a Pendrith, which I agree with. I totally understand why that would be the public sentiment, but unfortunately, that's going to lead to them being a little bit higher owned. So that's why these core plays are guys that I use as conviction plays that I'll use in 35 to 40% of my lineups, and that's essentially what the core play designation means. They're guys that I'm comfortable in taking a whole bunch of lineups, because if you're going to use somebody that's 15 to 20% owned, then you're going to have some conviction behind them to want to play them in 35 to 40% of the lineups and to get leverage to the rest of the field. So those are the idea with those two. I'll be leveraging them whatever sort of ownership number that they come in at. If it is 15, 20%, you'll see me doubling the field on that. And if it's a little bit lower, then maybe I don't have to be as aggressive with these two players. So as per usual, guys, if you guys want to find every single player that I'm getting to in my player pool, also all the projections, the modeling that you see on these spreadsheets, you guys can find those over there on my Patreon page. So make sure to check it out in the description of the video if you haven't already. Next up, we're going to go to our value plays down low. So first off, we got Cam Young at $7,500. You're kind of like Sam Burns has found something lately. And if we take a look at the recent form, you'll see the finishes start to reflect that. He had a T7 at the Truist, which if you remember was one of those comp courses that we were looking at before. In fact, our #1 comp course for this week. So I like that. I like the top 10, especially his best start of the year coming at those sort of events. He made the cut at the PGA Championship, which for him is an improvement over how he started this year. And then last week he finished top 25. And that was at a golf course that I didn't really feel like it felt his game. Like he's the kind of guy who bombs it a long way, doesn't hit a whole bunch of fairways, but this year he's been more accurate than we've seen, and he's putted a lot better than what we've seen over his career. The issue was the iron play, and for the last few events, the ball striking has finally started to come along, and I think there's an issue for it. He's been injured in 2025. I know it hasn't been widely publicized, but I've heard rumblings of him dealing with some issues, and if he's finally getting healthy, if he's finally figuring out that swing, and he's such a better putter now. I mean, just look at the shots gained this year. Last year, he was atrocious, one of the worst on tour. Now he's a good putter. And in fact, on this surface, he gains 0.7 shots per round on the bent POA, which is a half stroke better per round than his improved baseline. I love that for Cam Young. And if you take a look at the last 12 measured rounds, the shots gained metrics are still kind of coming along on him, but he's gaining in every category but around the green. I know the approach play isn't where we want it. We want it closer to a half a stroke or a stroke gained per round. That's what he used to do when he was newer to tour, but he's gaining off the tee. The putter has become a massive strength for him, which matters, especially at this sort of golf course. He loves the agronomy up here in the Northeast, of course, from Sleepy Hollow, New York, which has bent grass, not the same bent POA, but a similar type of grass in that portion of the country. Give me Cam Young, especially because he's going to be low owned. So I bet a little sprinkle on him at 75-1. That is not the main piece of betting exposure I'll be getting to, though. DFS, he's going to be a player that I'm trying to take in 20, maybe 25% of lineups, which should be well over 3x leverage. I'm not expecting him to be over 10% owned, not with the kind of form that he's shown lately. And I'm going to be taking my main betting exposure on him, though, with the top 10 at plus 650, because, you know, a top 10 would be enough to get there at 7,500 in DFS. It would be almost a for sure lock-in for an optimal play. And at plus 650, I think he's got a much better chance to go out there and hit that than what the odds would imply there. Especially now that he's on the ascent, he's played well at these sort of golf courses before. And Valspar Championship, I know it wasn't one of our main comps, different agronomy. That's why I didn't make the top 3 list, but it's the same kind of stat profile that plays well at golf course to golf course, a balanced off the tee play. You also have to be a really good iron player. It's all about the ball striking. That's where Cam Young has some of his best course history for his career. In fact, I almost had an outright on him when he lost to Pino Manotti a few years back. So maybe he's due to come through at some point for a win. I know it's kind of like the joke that Cam Young, people bet him to win, and he's never won before on tour. That's why I'm going with the top 10 bet as most of my exposure. So if he happens to win at 75-1, so be it. But that top 10 is really what we're aiming for. And then the last player we're going to go through is going to be Ricky Castillo at 7,200, who, if you've been following the channel, we've talked him up a whole bunch this year. And it's been for good reason. The kid is an absolute stud. He's a brand new kid on tour. He's a rookie, a ball striking first kind of player. And at a golf course like this, it's exactly what we're looking for. So I took him for a top 20 at plus 375. Also a little sprinkle on him to win at 100-1, which, just like the Cam Young one, I'm not counting on him to win this event, but he's the number 4 ranked player in the entire field, right? Not just like the 7K guys, of the entire field when it comes to course ranking. He's a top 10 model ranking play, so that incorporates all the different aspects of golf and how I can handicap these events. And if you go to the last 12 measured rounds, he's gaining nearly 1.2 shots gained approach per round. So if we're looking for ball strikers, you're not going to find much better than Castillo. Emiliano Grillo is gaining a little bit more on approach, 1.53 shots gained approach per round, but Castillo's the much better off the tee player. He's not only gaining a bunch on approach, but also about a half a stroke per round with the off the tee play. And on this surface, he hasn't been amazing for his career, still losing about 0.22 strokes per round, but compared to his 24 round baseline, which is negative 0.57 shots per round, that's 0.35 shots better per round on this type of surface. So maybe he's closer to a neutral this week putting. Heck, maybe he finds a way to gain a few strokes on the greens as well. If he does so and continues to hit the ball like he has from tee to green, I really like his chances to find some success. And the thing about Castillo is that he's both long and accurate off the tee. He's got a really good short game. We've heard that a few times. We've already seen it a few times on the PGA Tour this year. He's just a much better player than most people realize. I think he's an 8K player just in terms of talent level. I mean, I've tried to tell you guys thousands of times this year at this point that this kid is not a 6 or 7K guy. He's a much, much better player than everyone else is giving him credit for. And every week that he's down here at this portion of the pricing and he hasn't gotten the respect with the ownership either at this point, I'm going to continue to play him. And it's not like he's going to just hit every single time. I'm sure he'll fail at some point too, but the lack of respect is just jarring to me. So $7,200, top 20 at plus 375, the kind of player that I'll be getting well over the field on. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for the DFS and betting preview. Smash the like button if you guys haven't already, and also comment down below who you've got winning this thing for a chance to earn a free month on my Patreon page. And as long as they are at least 30-1 on the sports books to win, you will win a free month access if you get that winner. And it's going to be on a first come, first serve basis. So go ahead, claim your player before anyone else takes them from you. And best of luck with the giveaway and your exposure. I hope to see a few of your names towards the top end of those GPPs. Try and cash an outright or two, maybe some placement bets to add on top of the bankroll as well. And have yourselves a week for this event, because we've got a major championship coming up next. I'll be up there in Pittsburgh for the US Open, so I'm super stoked for that. But the only better way to prepare for a major championship, and especially a kind of pricey trip like we've got going up there, is to add to the bankroll, right? And perhaps pay for the trip before we even get out there. So that'll be our goal this week. Best of luck with everything that you guys are going with. The streams this week, it'll be Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time on the Ship It Nation YouTube. That'll be where we're doing the DFS and betting stuff. And then afterwards, it'll be the prop live stream for round number 1. And that's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time on my YouTube channel. So just like the last few weeks where we've been splitting up the live streams to make them a little bit more specific for the kind of content that you're looking for, it's going to be the same thing going forward. So make sure you subscribe to the Ship It Nation crew so you guys do not miss that content when I go live over there. And of course, subscribe to this YouTube channel so you guys catch all the content throughout the weekend. Not only do we have those Wednesday live streams that we'll be doing, but also rounds 2 through 4, we'll have you covered in the same sort of way. We'll have prop live streams for 2 through 4, also DFS and Showdown live streams as well. So you don't want to miss out on all of that. So set a reminder, subscribe so you guys can be notified when we're going live with that. Other than that, that's all I've got for the DFS and betting preview. I hope it'll be a good one for us and all of our exposure. And I'll see you guys a little bit later on.